I, 45 male, told my first biological offspring, 25 male, that I have 2 sons and he's not either of them. Now my sister, 37 female, is begging me to talk to him. When I, 45 male, was 21, I got my girlfriend at a time pregnant. I was extremely scared, but I manned up and married her. It was hard, but we made it work for 8 years until I caught her cheating. Subsequently, I ended the marriage and initiated co-parenting with my son at the time. He was my top priority. Having experienced my own father's absence, I made a personal vow to be the best father possible. I committed to having my son every weekend, consistently being punctual and well prepared. Despite juggling a full-time job and attending school, I made sure he always had my full attention when he was with me. He was my best friend and my son. Even though money was tight, we had some amazing adventures. He loved spending time with my family and even had friends in my neighborhood. I thought we were doing well until he was around 11. At that point, he started to not want to visit me. His mother had entered a new relationship with a financially well-off boyfriend, and I was aware that they were going on frequent trips and engaging in enjoyable activities on weekends. Initially, I didn't raise any objections, but after about 6 months into their relationship, my son's visits to me dwindled to perhaps 1 weekend a month. By the 9-month mark, he ceased coming altogether. After 3 months of calling, chasing, and begging, I was getting nowhere. My family came together and hired a lawyer to sue my ex for parental alienation. I lost and was ordered to pay more child support. As I was leaving the courtroom, my ex's lawyer approached me and offered to cancel the child support if I gave up my paternal rights. Vlad refused until the lawyer said this was both my ex-wife's and my then son's wishes. So I asked to speak to my son alone and they agreed. As long as both lawyers were in the room, I spoke to my son and asked him if he really wanted me to give up my rights. And he said, yeah. I explained that it would mean I won't be as bad that he couldn't come visit me or my family anymore. He looked me squarely in the eyes, as if casually asking for the time, and replied, yeah. It felt like a blow, and I sought clarification, asking him if he truly understood what he was saying. Without hesitation, he affirmed that he wanted to be his mom's boyfriend's son. That day, I signed the necessary papers. From that moment until 2 days ago, he never uttered a word or reached out to me or any member of my family. It literally almost killed me. I started to drink and stay drunk for weeks. Finally, one day I drank until I passed out and aspirated my own vomit. I would be dead now, except the mailman dropped a package addressed to me, to my neighbor's house, and she saw me convulsing through my window and called 911. I spent 2 weeks in a hospital with aspiration pneumonia. Following that difficult period, I relocated to my hometown, secured a new job, dedicated time to fitness, and underwent 4 years of intensive psychotherapy. Eventually, I reached a point where I could release the past and move forward with my life. Roughly 6 years after my relocation, I met my current wife, who had an 11-year-old son. Initially reserved with him, I couldn't resist falling in love with the incredible young boy he was, and still is. The day turned 18, he asked me to adopt him. His father left him when he was 5, never to be seen or heard of again. It was the proudest of my life. He and his mother turned my life around and gave me a reason for living. Now not only do I have a wonderful adopted for 19 who is currently serving the Marines, but I also have his son, 4-year-old, and daughter, 18 female. My career has flourished and I am thriving with success for myself and my family. I've become a comeback story, transforming from a man seemingly unloved to a successful father of 3, blessed with a beautiful wife and family. I not only survived, but thrived. Then, about 3 weeks ago, I received a call at my office. It was my ex's-in-law who informed me that my ex had passed away. I simply said okay and hung up. It's been 14 years since I've had any contact with any of those people, and I have no desire to know anything about them now and to force. My family and I were getting ready to go to a picnic when there was a knock on the door. I recognized him through the front glass. It was my first biological offspring. I opened the door and he said, "Hello, Obai. I'm your son." Without an ounce of hesitation, I said, "No, you're not. I have 2 sons and you're not either one of them. Now, please leave my property." He just stood there, kind of dumbfounded as I shut the door, and after a moment he left and then put out a text to my family, letting them know that he was lurking around. I have no desire to engage with them and I will sever ties with anyone who attempts to establish contact. It's been 14 years and I don't feel any obligation towards him or his family. I had to endure listening to my mother cry for him on her deathbed because of that child. I found myself in a hospital bed with a breathing machine keeping me alive, yearning for it to shut off and release me from the pain associated with that child. I learned in therapy that he had a right to make his own choices, but that I also have the right to make mine. My choice was to move on without him as part of my family as he wanted. He has no right to come back into my life and disturb me or my family now. My entire family agrees with me. Even my wife and my in-laws share the belief that nothing positive can emerge from reopening this chapter. He is now 25 years old. If there was any malicious scheme orchestrated by his mother and her boyfriend, he had 8 years to reach out to me. It seems suspicious that now, with his mother no longer in the picture, I'm suddenly in the spotlight. I am indifferent, even if he were to inherit $200. He made a call, and if he had seen the look in his eyes when he said, "Yeah, so you would have known like I did that he didn't give a damn about me." So I had to stop giving a damn about him to survive. He doesn't have the right to ambush me on my front porch and act like he's anything to me now. Well, come to find out, my sister is the one who has been giving him and my sister-in-law my contact info. My sister, who I love dearly, is inconsolable that I won't give him a chance. Apparently, he called her after he came to my house and broke down. I told her to stop right there. I don't care. But now she's pleading with me for the sake of our mother to meet with her son. So, I ask you, is there anything positive that can result from a meeting with this son at this point? Now, for the primary advice, he was only 12. Just because he desired it doesn't mean you had to grant his wishes. At that age, he couldn't possibly comprehend the long-term consequences of that decision. You had a choice to pay the child support and demand a custody agreement be upheld and enforced. No, I did not. The court had literally just told me that because my son was 12, I could not enforce or demand visitation time. Literally, I was ordered to pay more child support for a child that I had no right to see. Your sister doesn't sound very emotionally bright and has a lot of unwelcome opinions. You need to be very firm with her that her meddling will have consequences if pursued. As someone who has had a parent leave to family, I do agree that blood is thicker than water. Literally everything is thicker than water. The old saying isn't worth the ink it was written with. The only slack I will gotten. My sister was just 12 when he was born, and for 8 years my ex and I were together. During the time of the lawsuit, my sister was in college and only heard stories about what was happening. She played a role like a second mother to him. She deeply cared for that boy, and my mother did too. My mother wept on her deathbed, longing to see him one last time. I wouldn't wish that on anyone. My only curiosity with that says is what is playing out. I'll be honest, after I returned 18, I had some hope in my heart that he might try to contact me. But that was short-lived. That was 8 years ago. So I now tell her sister if she wants to have her own relationship with a guy, that's her prerogative as long as she leaves you out of it. She has shared her viewpoint and offered her suggestions, and now it's time for her to let it go unless she wants to experience some time without hearing from you. If you choose to listen to him, it will be based on your conditions and at your own pace. Forcing you into that conversation while you are still suspicious and upset won't lead to a positive outcome she desires, and employing the memory of your late mother to induce guilt is not acceptable on any level. As for whether you should hear him out, I do think it makes a difference that he was only 11 when this all went down. His mom dying might have prompted some reflection on things he couldn't really bring himself to question or push back on when she was alive. And maybe his remorse is genuine, but it is equally possible he's just not happy with what she left him, and a will. If you're comfortable with leaving things as they are, I don't believe anyone else has the right to dictate otherwise. It's not surprising that an 11-12-year-old was influenced by his mother and stepfather, especially if they were providing him with PlayStations. It's heartbreaking but not unexpected. Most 12-year-olds can be easily swayed, particularly those who have experienced the challenges of a divorce. So if Opia wanted to be more open-minded, and if during the last 8 years, something from mom or stepdad was preventing his contact or poisoned his ear, he could hear him out. But Opie took the rejection so hard of his time. I can see how he just can't go there again. There was a story in, and finished off on Best of Reddit updates about a woman who found out her husband was cheating and assumed her ex-husband was alienating the person against her. When he tried to come back into her life, she found out not only did he know about the cheating, the son blackmailed the father and got him whatever he wanted. Years of trying to establish a relationship with her son, only to find out that he really is a piece of trash. He did not apologize for anything. He admitted everything to her and told her the reason why he did that was because she didn't have anything to offer, and tried to be entitled to her money because the father didn't have any more money to offer. He was likely seeking financial assistance for his college education. I doubt it's the same situation. As everyone mentioned in the post, Opus should proceed on his own terms and establish clear boundaries. People vary in the number of chances they get, with some receiving multiple opportunities and others only having one chance that they may squander. While it might seem like Opus is taking it out on him, before deciding anything, Opus should provide a summary of what occurred after he initially spoke. Yeah, so and what he's been through. Also, Opus should inform him to be very careful with what he has next, because it might be their last conversation. That story was heartbreaking. I felt so bad for that woman. Her son was a legitimacy bath. He did and said that when he was a child, but has been an adult for 8 years now and only made contact after his mother died. Regardless of whether he had any fault in this, there was a lot of harm done to you. It's not negligible to what you were put through by him and his mother, and with him growing up with her as a role model. I'd be suspicious too. He's old enough to know that there are some things that can't be undone, and a whole lot of damage that I'm sorry doesn't cure, especially considering he didn't express any remorse. You're not obligated to expose yourself to potential harm again, especially now that you have to consider the well-being of your wife and 3 children in addition to your own. There's a Chinese saying that emphasizes the inability of medicine to cure regret. This situation appears to fall into that category. Why take the risk of experiencing regret by allowing this grown man back into your life after all the hardship he put you through? Best to do what Obai has done and to stand firm. Last story. Am I really hold for not letting my father Anderson me? To preface this, I'll give the baseline of my relationship with my father. He constantly reminded me of the fact that I was an accident during a pre-divorce hip fail dress. He literally sold me off to my abusive mother when they divorced to try and get a lower alimony payment. He abandoned me despite having partial custody, and was consistently absent even after I moved in with him at the age of 13. I left before graduating at the age of 17 and he left me in the care of my troubled, drug-addicted stepbrother without any support. I'll elaborate on the present problem after recounting the experience of living with him and his subsequent abandonment. I moved in with my sister and brother-in-law. They had a kid along with my brother-in-law's son from a previous marriage, and everything was fine for a few years until my sister decided she wanted to get pregnant, after agreeing with my brother-in-law to never have kids again. She wanted a point of poking holes in condoms and going off her birth control to try and force him into another pregnancy, which she was dead set against due to previous trauma and failed pregnancies. Combining various significant challenges and crossing boundaries that didn't honor their relationship ultimately led to its demise, and they parted ways. While my connection with my father was strained, it still endured. That changed when I discovered that my sister had fabricated allegations of abuse against my brother-in-law, seeking to strip him of all custody rights. Having been a part of their lives for most of the time their child was growing up, I was always actively involved in their relationship, and I knew this was a lie. After some questioning, I found out my father was a supporter in all of this and was fighting for my brother-in-law to never see son again. I snapped after sitting in on their mediation call, and I heard my brother-in-law cry like I'd never heard him before. It was a type of agony you'd only hear from a good man about to lose his child when he had done nothing wrong. I went on a warpath to fight for him, and in doing so called my father and ripped him 6 ways from Sunday. When I called him, I told him flat out, "Make sure you choose your words carefully because this may be the last time you and I ever speak." He proceeded to make a long list of excuses, dodging every question before I could even finish asking. Moreover, insisting that I should stay out of the dispute between my sister and brother-in-law, claiming it's their fight, completely disregards the impact on their son, whose experiences remain unknown to you. Despite my anger and disbelief, he abruptly mentions he has to work and ends the conversation. It's been 3 years, and that marked the final exchange between us. The next day, he comes by with something for my nephew and mentions to my brother-in-law that he's concerned me. No skin off my nose. He was a crappy failure of his father and I'll be fine without him. Almost immediately he changes his mind. He's always been a coward with no spine. His dad's texting and calling me to try and guilt me into forgiving him. Nevertheless, I refrain from engaging in a response. Being a deeply religious person, he seems more concerned about divine judgment than my own well-being. Regardless of his words, I stand firm in my decision. 3 years have passed and my life has undergone a complete transformation, distancing me from all of them. I now lead a content and fulfilled life, surrounded by individuals who genuinely love and care for me. Sometimes I can't help but think about it though. Did I do the right thing? What happened with your brother-in-law in custody? I was as involved with a custody case as I could be. I spoke out about how my brother-in-law was a good father being framed in a bad light, and that he deserves to see his son. He secured partial custody, though I believe it falls short of what he deserved. Nonetheless, it's a preferable outcome compared to the alternative. I appreciate you summarizing the situation. I'm relieved that things resolve positively. As the children grow older, their preferences regarding custody will carry more weight, and it's likely that your sister's kids may choose to spend more time with their father. I empathize with your experience. Indeed, my father's shortcomings as a parent during my childhood, a crucial time for proper parenting, would have been reason enough to sever ties. The additional challenges only serve as further confirmation. It sounds like you can relate, having a similar situation with your mother. Such circumstances can be incredibly difficult, and I hope you found the support and strength needed to navigate them. I haven't spoken to her for 5 years. My life is much better for it here. Not at all. You owe your father absolutely nothing. You did yourself a huge favor by dropping him from your life. My maternal grandfather and grandmother have done far less awful things to my mother, but a B nonetheless, and her remaining in contact with them and failing to set boundaries out of guilt and AFEF. There are times when she is depressed for days after having a phone call with them. I have tried explaining, time and time again, you do not owe anyone a relationship at the expense of your own mental health and happiness. Take care of yourself.